to the Art Craze. So Robert, can you start us off by explaining to us like the effect of each light that you have set up here?
Yes, I'm a big believer in soft light, you know, and it eliminates shadows from people, and I notice your hair kind of comes down across you. And I like to key from one side, and so I set up the key over there, which, just gives you the main source of light coming from that way. And I try to keep it as soft as possible, so I bounced it into a white card. And then you need a little more light from this side because it was just going black on this side, so I brought a little bit of fill light in just to try to fill you in a little bit. And because your hair is fairly dark and the background was dark, we used these backlights to try to separate you from the from the background a little bit. And then we had tried to add a little bit of light just to the background so that it would help separate you, so you wouldn't just blend right in. But I try to go generally soft light as much as possible. It's a little more flattering, and in today's world, oftentimes actors don't hit marks as well as they used to, and so you want to give it soft and let them move around, and it's generally a little more flattering too.
Now, does the camera that you use ever affect your lighting? Because film, it's a little bit more softer than it is an Alexa.
Yeah, I've changed my lighting style quite a bit since I've started shooting digitally.
Yeah.
And particularly like the Alexa and certain digital cameras are so sensitive in low light that it's often a question of taking light away rather than putting light on. Where with film it was quite a bit of just adding more light to things, and digital is a different kind of way of working. So you can typically in an interior or a night scene use less lights and get away with a lot less than we used to do with film for sure.
Now, if you were to do a night scene such as this, would you do it somewhat similar, or would you kind of?
Probably I would use bigger lights, and then what we often do is we do a bounce, but then we get a giant silk and we put it in front of the bounce so that it really softens the light out. We just didn't have a giant silk the other day. But I would probably have done a similar thing and then just put a giant silk in front of it. And that way you could move around if you had to move around, and you'd have a very nice, soft, pleasing light. Wherever you happen to be. Oftentimes, I mean, this is several cameras here, but oftentimes over the camera I would just put a little Kino, just to give you a little bit of fill. And, that way we could adjust that to the camera. Certain cameras are more sensitive than others. I could add a couple of tubes to make it brighter, or take the tubes off to make it less.
So is that like your style? Is like just to do a giant light, soften it up?
A giant light from the side, soften it as soft as I can make it often, and then a fill over the camera just to fill in, and then oftentimes I use hard light on the backgrounds, like if it's a day interior, if sunny day, whatever, I could use hard light to kind of accent the background to give it a little bit of spice. So. But I tend to not use hard light on the actors.
Now, doing day exterior, you're working with the biggest light of them all, the sun.
Yes.
How do you go about doing something like that?
Well, the key to day exteriors is trying to shoot at the right time of day.
Yeah.
And, early in the morning, late in the afternoon, the light's a little nicer. And kind of the cardinal rule is if the big light is right behind you, you know you're in trouble. So I try to do it behind the actors, backlight them or side light them as much as possible. And on a movie like Ghostbusters, we would have these giant silks that we had a construction crane because we had to shoot during the middle part of the day, and so we would get 40 by 80 silks that we would just fly over the actors, and it just allowed us to shoot all day, shoot at noon, and the actors still look great, and it gave us a lot of flexibility being able to do it. It's just an expensive thing to do, and on a student production you would never be able to do that. But I've done low budget movies. The Squid and the Whale was shot very low budget, very very quickly, and we just made the commitment to try to shoot at the right time of day, and I think that helped us keep the schedule going. So.
Now, one DP told me that he doesn't like to use silks because he said because it's threaded, that light can seep through and it gets a little like holy.
Well, I use them, and there's different materials you can use. You can use grid cloth. There's different materials. Maybe he's referring to the edges. I'm not sure what he was referring to, you know, we use quarter grid and half grid, and it seems pretty smooth and easy, and it allows, like I said, it just gives the actors the ability to move, and we can block things with Paul, as I said earlier. He likes to let the actors have a lot of freedom in their blocking, and so it gave us a much broader space to work, and so on Ghostbusters we had that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, with lenses, does that ever affect your lighting style also? Because like Cook S4s are really soft like lenses. Versus
not really.
No?
You know, I generally, like I said, try to soft light the actors and do a lot of hard lighting on the backgrounds, basically.
Any filtration or anything?
I shoot clean. I always shoot clean, and in today's world, what happens is they can even add the filtration in post, and they do these kind of cosmetic fixes sometimes. If an actor has a particularly bad cosmetic something on their face, they can go in and they just use visual effects to erase it. You know, I do a thing I call goggling in the digital intermediate, where many times actors have very deep set eyes, and you know, they're sensitive to light, and so when you try to fill it with light, they are squinting all the time and complaining. So we do this thing in post-production where we actually put a little, I call it goggles, on their eyes, and we bring it out a little bit, and it tracks them, so when they move, the goggles move with them, and I can cut the contrast and lighten them up in the eyes. I've done that quite a bit with particularly women actors. You know,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, in your span of movies, you've done a lot of comedies.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever feel that you have to switch a style when you move to other types of?
Yeah, I mean the material really dictates the visual style, and the thing you know, I will say about Paul, when we did Spy and we just did Ghostbusters, he really kept pushing it to be darker, you know, which oftentimes in comedies they want it to be bright and flat. But Paul didn't want that at all, and it was kind of the beauty of shooting in both those movies digitally, is he could see on the monitor exactly what we were shooting, and he was like, you know, let's make it darker, and I was like, great, you know, that's music to a cinematographer's ears. And with Wes, we kind of, I know what Wes is expecting a lot. We kind of think similarly visually, so you know, I can pretty much anticipate how I'm going to do things, and we talk pretty much in great detail how we're going to do things beforehand. So.
Now, is your relationship with Paul like fairly new?
I started on Bridesmaids, which I'm not sure how many years ago that was.
I think it was 2011.
That makes sense. I was going to say about 5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done 4 movies with him.
Is it difficult working with new directors?
No, I enjoy it. You know, you know, it's like a marriage. You know, you spend so much time with a director, and so you know, when I go interview with people, I really just try to figure out, is this someone who I'm going to want to spend a lot of time with?
Yeah.
You know, and do we get along? Do we think alike, or are we going to be battling all the time? And very infrequently in my career have I ever gotten in a situation where the director and I just thought totally opposites, and you know, it's not a very fun experience for anybody when that happens. You know? But so I try to see if there's someone who I can get along with, and think alike. You know.
Okay, well, so for young cinematographers out there who are dying to get into the industry, do you have any advice for them?
I would say shoot as much as you can. And when I started out, I shot free things. You learn every time you go out, and I think it's part of the beauty today is. When I came out of USC, it was all film, and so you had to rent a film camera and buy the film and pay for the processing, and it was a pretty expensive thing to do. And today, I mean, people shoot on iPhones and they edit on their computers. And
I heard that movie Tangerine
was shot on iPhone,
yeah.
And you know, it just gives young filmmakers more of an opportunity to go out and make films, which I think is great. You know, and you know, back when I got out, it was really difficult to kind of go out and practice your craft.
You can just
Okay. So, you know, it's an advantage that we have today.
Yeah.
For sure. Just shoot anything you can. And I would also advise them to, if they can, edit it, because that's where you really learn how how to shoot is when you go to the editing room and you see where you made your mistakes, and you know, you learn how to shoot for the cutting room, which is ultimately where the movies are being made. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me, color. How do you deal with color in lighting? Because that also can be like a huge aspect sometimes.
Yeah.
All the time.
Well, with Wes, we shoot a lot of tests beforehand,
Yeah.
you know, because his colors are so specific. And, you know, we'll get swatches of color that would be the wardrobe, and we paint flats, this colors, different colors, like at Grand Budapest, we had different colors that we painted, and then we tried out different colors for the wardrobe and the jackets and things. And so it was a great deal of testing that went in on that one. And then, you know, now with digital, it's become a whole new game.